I've recorded every single Mythic Plus key that I've attempted in Season 1 of The War Within, and in this series I'm going to cover the highs and lows of each dungeon on my way to pushing to the 0.1% title. In the last episode, we finally reached 3k rating, ending that video on 3036 Mythic Plus score, and today we're going to start with a 14 siege. So with our route at the start here, basically what we're going to do is we're going to skip the raider that patrols in like the second area. So the rest of my group is not using their DPS pots at the start. I can get away with doing that because I can actually use my greater invis later. Now I use my greater invis at the start, assuming that I would have it back in time for the skip, but I was about 20 seconds out. So I ended up actually having to scramble to use my invis pot, and I think I just lost a few seconds here because the raider was patrolling background, and then I did end up getting spotted by him. It was also very close, but I did get taken out. Not the end of the world, but a slight time sink for this death. And then we can skip over to just before the second boss, and Artie actually ends up getting taken out by the sighted artillery here. I think he was just trying to double them up because you can actually drop two puddles in the same place and then quickly move out, and then you won't get hit by it. But he did end up getting hit by it. Now, the reason why I brought this up is because the skip we did earlier is actually where the spawn point is all the way up until the second boss, so it gets real sketchy if you do die. Luckily, Artie was a night elf, so he could just shadow mail the aggro off and then catch up to us. But let's say if Seb died and did the same, then he would just be stuck at the start, unable to res. We since then have obviously figured out that this is the case, so if anybody does die in this area, then they're just going to have to stay dead, unfortunately. It is kind of mental, though, that every single boss in the game isn't a checkpoint for a res point. Like, that just seems like the easiest fix that Blizzard could do, because, like, res points are such a problem in this game still. Then after the second boss, we move on and accidentally pull two demolishers at the same time. Now, this is very scary because of their crushing slams, but we do actually manage to pull off our defensives quite well, and alongside with the stops on the smaller mobs, so we don't get any nasty overlaps. I'm not sure that we could do this again if we tried it, but it was very well played from the group. As you can see, all of my defensives are on cooldown. And on Arcane, I really do miss having the double block that Frost has access to. And then jumping over to the last boss, we start this boss with around 4 minutes left without Lust, so we were just going to be slightly out of time anyway, but we did actually miss percentage because for whatever reason, with the pack in the corner just at the bottom of the stairs under the snipers and spotters, there was only 3 mobs in there when there's normally 5 or 6, so we missed percent because of that. I don't know what happened there, I don't know why the mobs were not there, but apparently Yoda's group have seen it before, so I guess you just can't consistently put them in your run. Not too sure what happened there. But yeah, this key was definitely timeable if it was just a smoother run. Bouncing over to a 13 Dawnbreaker then. In this one, we just copied Yoda's route, verbatim pretty much. And I think that's what we should do anyway. Like, there's a reason that Yoda is doing these kind of routes, right? Like, they know what they're doing. They figured it all out. They know the most efficient route possible. And their 15s or 16s that they were timing at the time in comparison to our 13s is the same sort of relative difficulty, right? Because of their damage, and they're just better players. So we do end up going to the Dark Orb mini-boss second with Lust and all of our cooldowns. Delete that, and then I also delete the second boss. And to be honest, I feel like we should be two-chesting this key at this point. But, I mean, I'm just glad that we have finally broken the 13 Dawnbreaker curse. But Dawnbreaker is definitely one of the easier keys to execute. So we do end up timing this key with around 4 minutes left. Plenty of time still on the timer. We get 13 score out of this, taking us up to 3,049. And then, as we were feeling so confident after that 13 Dawnbreaker, we then headed into a 14 Dawnbreaker. This was with a pug though, so we did have a different tank to normal, which definitely did cause a bit of scuffage with the route. So moving into the city of Mereldar, our second Lust had come up after we killed the first mini-boss. Now at this point, we're kind of saving our cooldowns and we're all ready to go and Lust the Dark Orb mini-boss, because that is definitely the scariest of the mini-bosses. But it would seem the tank had other plans and he wanted to just go and do this tactician pack while our Lust is just sat on cooldown and we've got all of our cooldowns ready. RT even held his Spy Masters with 40 stacks for specifically to go to the Dark Orb mini-boss. So yeah, this was a huge waste of time and definitely an inefficient part of the route. And the tank was just like, who cares? Do you listen? Or when like clearly we have the better idea for this, and like, I don't know, I just don't get it. And he was so adamant on lusting the AoE mini boss with the shadowy decay, which is just like pointless. Everyone knows when the damage is coming out in that fight, and there is no scary overlaps with the Dark Orbs. Like, you just definitely do want to lust a Dark Orb mini boss. You can pull more into it, etc, etc. But we had a tank with a bit of an ego. He was a good player though, to be fair. It's just a shame that he got so aggy so quickly about it. Like it was just literally his way or no way because he's got that tank privilege. But apart from the route being mega scuffed because of that, the rest of the key was super clean. We had a flawless run with 0 deaths. And we do again time this 14 key with 4.5 minutes left this time. So we were even quicker and it's key level higher. And we get 14 score out of that, taking us up to 3,075. Quickly, I just forgot. I realized why the timer looked even better there. This was the point in the season where the 90-second timer was added to the Challenger's Peril affix. So any keys moving forward will have that extra 90 seconds on them. All these previous keys have not. Another off-stream key here, another 14 as well. We have a 14 City of Threads. Again, doing the really nice skip at the start. I feel like this skip is so efficient. The only thing that I don't like about it is the fact that you miss out on the extra damage buff for the first boss, which I feel would go a long way for efficiency. And again, because I'm swapping so much at the moment between Arcane and Frost, I'm still getting used to these cooldown timings. So on the second Eye of the Queen pack, I end up sending my Spy Master's Web at around 32-ish stacks. Delete this, which I think is the right play, but it does mean that I don't have full stacks going into the NX VX boss with Lust and all that good stuff. And speaking of NX and VX, I actually didn't realize at this point that Duskbringer hit so hard. I didn't really understand what was chunking me so bad. Turns out it was the Duskbringer, so you definitely want to be using a defensive when that goes off. But we do get them down with no problems. Pretty happy with my DPS here on Arcane. I feel like Frost is just much better in this fight, but I did kind of blast on the Arcane Mage here. And then here's where we make up all the percent. As you guys have seen in previous videos, we pull 3 packs together here, and then Relly just kites out the conscripts because they will hurt if they are able to just continually melee him and get their debuff on him. This is definitely at the point in the dungeon where I feel like Frost is better, and I am now back on Frost for the most part, but I definitely feel like this is a Frost dungeon. Heading over to the Coagulation then, I hate this boss. I don't really understand, like I do understand it, but it just scares me because of the healing absorb that you constantly have on you during this fight. So we go into the first Dark Pulse, I think it is, and we had a Spirit Link totem here, but I didn't realize it was going off, so I invis just before, maybe slightly too early because the tail end of the Dark Pulse starts chunking me down and I almost die for it. I feel like I would have got much better value here if I had mirror imaged and alter timed. It's really nice to pair those two defensives up together. Like your greater invis and your ice blocks, they're more of like a singular defensive, like they do enough by themselves, right? So just better usage of my defensives. And also as a team, like I feel like we're still getting used to, even now, we're still trying to get better at calling our defensive rotations for when we have big defensives like Spirit Link, Zephyr, etc, etc. So yeah, then we move on to the test subject up the stairs, and I'm not really sure I can't really remember why Relly pulled the first mini boss with this as well. He said it was something about he was scared that he was just going to ninja pull it, but that doesn't really make sense to me because like if you ninja pull it, you ninja pull it, right? Sorry, Relly. Anyway, he pulls the Shade Weaver in, and that is just something that you do not want to do with this test subject because we got weaved at the same time as the barrage went off. So we are just rooted inside all of these swirlies. Somehow Bringer saves the day. We will pop big defensives for it as well. But yeah, man, these last mini bosses and last boss is just, they are terrifying. Everything they do hits so hard and you need big defenses for every single one. And that's what I'm saying, even at this point in the season, as in like up to date with where I'm at with keys, because these keys are slightly behind, we're still getting used to like sending our defensives at the right times. Because to be honest, I feel like me personally, I overcommit defensives. I feel like I'm too scared about some of the casts and I use defensives that are too big for it when I could just live like an Umbral Weave natty with just a barrier and maybe like alter myself up. But instead, what I'm doing is just sending an ice block or sending a greater invis for every single one. But another flawless key for the boys. So we end this key with 2 minutes left and get 15 score out of this, taking us up to 3,090. So we are very quickly pushing to 3.1. I think this was like all in one day and we gained like 100 score in a day. It was pretty mental. So let's skip over to another 15 miss. Let's see if we can time this one, unlike the one from last episode. Now on the first boss, we did get a bit mixed up with what we were doing here, because if we're trying to one phase, we want to send all of our cooldowns into Ingra at the start because he doesn't have the damage reduction debuff on him at the start. You want to get him lower so that during the phase you can pretty much one-shot him. But I think in this key, we had actually decided that we were just going for the 2 phase. I think with the Shadow Priest, we just decided that we wouldn't be able to 1 phase on a 15. So I ended up sending all of my damage into the tree. I think RT maybe sent his damage into Ingra. I can't remember exactly what the scuffage was here, but I know that our cooldowns did end up very scuffed for this. So then it's getting very, very close to the phase here, and I've still got around 10 seconds left on my Arcane Surge. Then we do end up phasing it, so I'm all out of whack here. Like, my cooldowns are just not lining up nicely into this phase. I do sort of recover it somehow, but I'm pretty sure that my Magi actually popped after the debuff was removed, so I lost out on like most of my damage there, honestly. Like, those Magi's hit for like 40 million. Not the end of the world, it just was a very inefficient boss from us all, but we like, this is our second 15 ever, so we're just getting used to the timings here. Then here was where we realized that Slowfall makes it like infinitely easier for Seb to pull through the wall at the start of the maze. You need to be doing this in these higher keys to actually get efficient percent, otherwise you're never really going to time any high mists. Again, we do some more pulling through the wall action here once we get to the Gorge Gullet, but our tank did get hit by the frontal here, and along with the damage from all of the other mobs, he just instantly falls over. And in these higher keys, as soon as you have a big death like that, the key is over. But what we did is we sent kind of the rest of the key just to get some practice in with how everything else was feeling for the rest of the dungeon, and then we went out and ran it back on a 14. I think we're feeling more confident with one phasing on the 14, so we ended up sending all of our damage into Ingra at the start. And then by the time it gets to the damage phase, Ingra is already on around like 80-85% HP. So coming out of the phase, we get him to around just under 20% HP, and we just decide to stick to him here. I think on a 15 though, if we do stick him at around 15%, then we will just wipe. We won't be able to kill it through the damage reduction that he does eventually get. And then towards the end of the dungeon, on this Staghorn and Acid Gullet pack, I get one of the volatile acid puddles. And I think in my brain, the Staghorn was so low that I thought it was just going to die before its next Acid Nova, so I wasn't even looking. Otherwise, I should have popped a Ice Block, a Greater Invis, or even a bloody Mirror Image. As you can see, I just was not aware at all that this cast was actually going to go off and kill me. Actually, I think as I die, you can see my keybind like highlight on my Greater Invis because I was trying to get it off. But that's just me in my old age. And then for the last boss, we do actually end up dragging the rest of these gorges into it. A little bit sketch with all the puddles going out at the same time as the acid expulsion puddles going out. And also, I mean, it's like, it's going to happen anyway. Like, we're going to send our cooldowns at the start, but we end up going into the first consumption phase without any damage, so it does last quite a little while. But we do time this 14 very, very comfortably with around 4 minutes left, and we get 16 score out of this, tipping us over 3.1 to 3,106. So then, let's get ourselves into some stone vaults, shall we? So at this point in the season, we were still trying to master and execute this double golem pull at the start with Lust and all of our cooldowns. There is just so much going on here, man. Like, in high keys, we will need to do this to time the key, I feel like. But for now, I think at this point, we can just get away with playing it slow and steady and just out-damaging the timer. Because this first pull is terrifying, man. Like, you've got all the curses going out. You've got the swirlies on the floor. You've got 2 ground pounds going out as well. And because I'm trying to outrange these ground pounds, I'm stood away from the pack, which means I have to wait for my arcane orbs to travel through the mobs before I can then barrage. So there's just a lot of downtime in my rotation, and I lose out on a hell of a lot of damage for this. Then going down the Skarmorak corridor after the first boss, I send all of my cooldowns into this elemental. Here, I should not be focusing the elemental. Although it's labeled as a priority color on my plater profile, that's more for like lower keys. In these higher keys, I need to be focusing the Howlers because they need to die quick. But because all of my prio damage is going into the elemental, I instantly rip aggro off of it with 40 stacks of Spire Masters. It just comes over and bonks me on the head, so I die instantly in my cooldowns. It was actually on me for a while because it did the Crystal Salvo in between, so I probably could have outranged this and just let Rally get some time to actually taunt it back. But it is what it is. Then we move over to Skarmorak and we pretty much wipe instantly. I send all my cooldowns again with my 40 stacks of Spy Masters. I can't choose where my barrages go, and everything just dies pretty much instantly, unfortunately. I think also my Arcane Splinters just did insane damage at the start here and just nuked all of the shards. So yeah, there's not much I can do about that. I think Relly also did quite a lot of damage to them, but I think generally that was just unlucky. We did do another 14 Stone Vault in between, but nothing really happened in it. It's just Relly fell over after Edna because he had no defensives on the double pack. So he made that 14 into a 13. And then Skarmorak, I turbo deleted. Literally pressed Control-Alt-Delete on this thing. Sustaining 2 million damage for pretty much the whole pull, which is very nice. I mean, that's what Arcane's good for, right? And then the rest of the dungeon was pretty clean until I had to do the skip here. So what I do is I alter time, pull the guards, run away, all the group runs past, then I alter back and then invis. But I got a bit ahead of myself with the alter time. As I pressed it, I heard Rally say that he needed to drink and he's slightly far back here. So I kind of like waited with my alter time already active. And then by the time I pull them, I'm on like 5-6 seconds. Then I run away and they're kind of slow and I just get ported back. I should have cancelled my alter here and then just, I guess, blinked past them. But I had never done that before. So I was kind of hesitant to. But the guards actually end up getting aggro on the group anyway. So we end up playing them with like the whole room together. And at this point, I was like, oh shit, I've completely thrown like a clean key here. Like this was such a free key until I messed it up. But it was fine. We still got 11 minutes left on the timer. Did cause a few deaths though. I think Bringus gets taken out by the frontal while I just get back. So this pack was definitely very scuffed, but I mean, this is just from pure sheer panic, right? Because we pulled those 2 extra mobs in. Like if we'd calculated to do this pull, we would have been fine because we would have all been watching for the frontals and we would have been ready. So a little bit messy at the end, but we do still time this key relatively comfortably with around 1.5 minutes left. And we do get 11 score out of this one, taking us up to 3,117. So moving into the next stream then, I've been rocking a Binding of Binding this whole time because Seb gaslit me into thinking that it was actually good for me when it's actually good for the Org and the healer to do it so that the DPS can actually do their damage, you know? So it is a vault day and I do end up getting a 639 weapon out of the vault. Haste Mastery, so not ideal stats, but having that extra 3 item levels of in and I can mesh the rest of my stats around this weapon is definitely worth it, and it means that I can recraft as well. So I actually ended up going for the Dust Thread and Dawn Thread linings to get some extra crit and verse. There's some really good uptimes on those stats as well, so it's definitely worth it. And to be honest, my damage actually did skyrocket. I don't think it's purely down to this. I think it's just a mixture of getting better stats from the vault as well and mixing around with my gear. So what better way to test it out than in a 14 necrotic wake, eh? Now, it wouldn't be a necrotic wake if Vesh doesn't die to throw flesh at the start. In the exact same global that I get throw flesh, Rally also procs his templed in battle on me, which basically just steals my health. So I pretty much just get one shot instantly. Very fun, not tilting at all, but we're up to like 8.5, 9 million on this first pull and sustaining that as well. Keeping up with the enhance. RT's actually finally on enhance now, I should definitely mention that. So this was like his first couple of keys where he's still only like, what, 620 here maybe? And he's still learning the spec as well. Then after the first couple of pulls, we pull this Vanguard pack into Blightbone. Very, very efficient percent here. Very scary, but efficient. Now, what I want to be doing in future keys is to focus the Harvester, because the Harvester will just sit out of the pack and cast once we have to start moving the boss. But it kind of just passively dies to the cleave here anyway. And then during the boss, we just kite back through the dungeon and pull these extra Blight bags on for a bit of extra funnel. It's real nice for my Frozen Aubrey sets. It's a shame that Enhanced Chamois aren't playing the Elementalist build anymore, because he would be getting turbo prio damage out of this. Then heading over to the first Necromancer pack that we pull upstairs, we actually almost end up maybe wiping to this. So on this pack, I'm always calling that I'm going to be kicking the Magus on its Frostbolt volley. But we did actually get unlucky. I don't know if the spawns from this Necromancer are RNG. I feel like they are, because we get a Magus here, another Magus here very early. So his Frostbolt volley almost goes off. I run over and DB it just literally at the last second. And then we just about kill it before the next Frostbolt volley goes off. So that was very lucky. Then we skip over to this Lust pack, which I'm still not convinced this should be a Lust pack. I think we're going to try and switch things up later down the line, because this is just such an easy pack. But I guess it is efficient because there's a lot of mobs that you kill. I don't know. We did big damage on it anyway. Sent our trinket. Sent all of our cooldowns. Didn't have pot for this though, but we do manage to get up to around 10 million DPS. And then we chain this Marauder pack into the Monstrosity as per usual. I feel like even this would be a more efficient Lust. Like, there's just so many smallies in that last pack. And Relentless pretty quickly falls over on the prop pally here. I think he was stood in the Shadow Well for too long, just got caught in that, and then just got overlapped with maybe Necrotic Bolts and such. But yeah, that is the end of that key, unfortunately, which is a shame because up until that point, it was relatively clean, I would say, and it looked like we were going to time it. But that is where we're going to leave it for this episode. So we have fully cleared 3.1 now, well on our way to 3.2, and hopefully we'll get there maybe in the next episode or maybe in the one just after that, we will see. But if you guys are enjoying this series, then please feel free to drop a like down below, subscribe to your boy, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.